In the quiet embrace of his studio, the sculptor dances with his tools, each stroke of the chisel breathing life into the unyielding clay. The camera glides through the scene, revealing the artist at his table, where sketches of fantastical forms come to life on paper. Each line drawn is a whisper of inspiration, a promise of what could be. As the montage unfolds, we witness the alchemy of creation, hands immersed in rich, cool clay, shaping figures that seem to pulse with emotion. The kiln hums with anticipation, transforming raw earth into enduring beauty, while the artist's heart beats in rhythm with the pulse of his work. Each piece emerges not just as a sculpture, but as a testament to the power of imagination, capturing the essence of life itself. In this world of three dimensions, the sculptor's passion is palpable, a vivid expression of the human experience sculpted in clay.
Benjamin Grimm, a founding and erstwhile member of the Fantastic Four, bears an iconic image that is easily recognizable based on a very few specific characteristics. Large muscles, covered in little orange rocks, rocky brow, and itty-bitty blue eyes. The comic book presentation of the Thing relies not only on archetypes, but symbolism. In much the same way that another costume character is easily recognizable by the costume, the basic physique and abstract facial features, the Thing can be identified in almost any form or rendition. In fact, if any other character were drawn with as much variance as the Thing in size, texture, features, body type, etc., they would look like several different characters wearing the same costume. Comics are forgiving in this aspect because a Jack Kirby Thor is as easily recognizable as a Walt Simonson version, although they are truly nothing alike. Cinematic audiences are less forgiving, quickly pointing out characteristics between the actors portraying costume characters, yet the intended character is still identifiable, most of the time, with the original concept. My favorite version of the Thing is the John Byrne presentation, with my first exposure to the character being Fantastic Four Volume 1, number 274, featuring the story of Benjamin Grimm post-Secret Wars, while he was adventuring on his own on hiatus from the Fantastic Four's roster. The model I am building here is based on a later rendition by the incomparable John Byrne, but I will still lean heavily into his earlier version, inspired by Jack Kirby's conceptual art. Key aspects of this design are the very thick, rounded body and limbs, the rocky brow ridge, and the wider angled face that looks much less like a peanut than many other versions. The sketch is only to provide the scale for the armature, not the exact pose. I will be trying to keep the lurching brute pose, as I think that later, more finely defined muscled versions often lose the core character presentation, while upright versions of the Thing are often presented as far too large. Ben is very large, very heavy, but is still only around 6 feet tall. In compensation, I have seen artists portray him as 8 feet tall or greater, just to balance out their muscle design. I will be trying to capture the bulk of the Thing, but I will also be attempting to preserve some level of recognizable musculature in the limbs and torso. The armature will need to be strong to support the massive body of the Thing. Even though a thick layer of aluminum foil will provide the basic shaping, this project will take a lot of clay. I want the final build to be solid, and to accomplish this, I will use consecutive thin layers of clay to build up the mass around a bulky and tightly compressed aluminum foil core. To counter the weight of the project, I am also attempting to give the sculpture a low center of gravity and wide base for better balance. Benji will be fixed to a base, with the pegs of the armature fixed to small slots in the base, but the base is not required to hold the sculpture upright. The basic form of the thing will be built up with small strips of clay to define proportions, develop symmetry, and make his body look as natural as possible. A note on proportions. The arms are the same length, and the legs were measured to ensure they were as equal as possible. But in layering up the mass of the thing, I noticed that keeping the arms visually symmetrical was a significant challenge. The pose has balance, and the legs match very nicely, but in the end, close observation betrays the right leg as being a bit larger than the left. With the mass of the body in place, another thin layer of shaped and arranged clay pieces adds a clear muscle structure to prevent his arms from looking like lumpy bananas and his body from appearing too round. With his pose, the attention to Ben's back is important. Much of the appearance of strength and size will depend on the detail of his prominently visible back. The massive muscles of Ben's back will be made more impressive by keeping the spine recessed but clearly formed. The back muscles extend over the shoulders to the chest, giving the thing an appearance of having no neck at all. In this lurching pose, it is important to keep that muscle mass prominent but not shapeless. The chest will be partially hidden, but the detail of defining the chest muscles is still vital to the final project. With a clear idea of the actual size of the finished project, it is now time to build the head. Remember that it can be small in proportion to the body, but it should not be tiny. My plan is to make the head appear to be massive, and yet still small enough to enhance the sheer mass of his body. I built the mouth wide, added the large upper lip, and now build his teeth to place inside his mouth to keep the illusion of depth. I shaped the upper lip to give him a bit of a snarl while still exposing his clenched teeth. The visible parts of his gums are defined. The teeth are straightened a bit because I want the level of detail to be as intricate as possible. His lower lip is more pronounced than the upper, forming a nice, deep frame around the teeth. Benji does have a chin, despite some versions appearing to have a lower lip connecting directly to his chest, but it should be recessed. With the prominent mouth complete, the next step is the eyes. They should be small, a bit far apart but not too much, and deeply recessed from the large brow. Special attention is paid to the cheekbones, which will be key to capturing the essence of the head's shape. Ben's nose is simple, and one of his most common features ubiquitous to the many versions of the thing. The brow ridge is not so consistent, but it is my opinion that rocky eyebrows are vital to the true charisma of the thing. The rocky brow and the crags of his face bring Aunt Petunia's bouncing baby boy to life. The rocky texture of Ben's skin is not composed of uniformly shaped pieces, but a combination of large and small crags, with the larger rocks forming at peaks or less mobile areas of his body. For his head, randomly sized rocks will radiate out from a few larger rocks at the central top of his cranium. Placement of the rocks carefully will make them appear more random than haphazard placement, using tiny pieces to fill in gaps for the craggy finished look. To someone inspired to make your own version of the thing in clay, this method will introduce an additional layer of thickness to the finished product. Planning ahead is key to making sure the final build remains proportionate to your vision. Texturing the cracks enhances the rocky appearance, preventing the individual pieces from looking like loose river stones. This also shapes the rocks up, giving them depth. A quick light brush gives the rocks a porous texture that will be especially convincing after the final paint stage. The thing is a forgiving build, but I feel very good about my success in capturing his face. And now, We'll bake it to keep it safe. Differences in the arms require additional time in building them up to match, with the plus side being that the additional mass will bulk him up nicely. The Jack Kirby-inspired John Byrne version of the Thing is a physical brute with exaggeratedly larger arms than legs. This often makes the legs appear to be very short and thick. This will make the hands nearly reach the floor when bent over at the waist, such as in this pose. The trade-off for filling out the lower torso and backside is that less area is left for the length of the legs. This works in my favor, to a degree, in keeping with the source material of the lumbering, monstrous appearance. I have a good idea of how I want to build the feet, but I try a few methods out, opting for a short, flat base with 3 short, craggy toes sticking out. The hands will be essentially the same, with mitt-like bulky pads and extended fingers radiating outward from the center. I am certain at this point that the left hand will either be reaching out toward or touching the ground. The mitts are mutually formed to resemble hands and to keep them equally sized. The fingers are thick and rectangular but should appear to be prehensile. The hands go on first, building them directly to the armature and positioning them to look natural, proportionate, and strong. The back of the hands will be textured with the body, but the fingers and palms can be textured at this point, while still accessible without interfering with finished clay work. The feet will have heels, with the recessed left foot appearing to be placed more under the leg than the forward extended right foot. This will give the feet sufficient width and length to support the weight and balance of the whole build, even without the base pegs. Hopefully, fans of Kirby or Byrne should be able to see the influence at this stage of the project. At this point, the head seems big, but keep in mind that an entire additional layer of craggy rocks remains to be set in place. Additional liquid clay will help to reinforce the head and seal it to the body. This portion of the build has been baked to preserve the form, provide a solid foundation for the final layers, and allow me to turn and press where I need to cover the whole body with little rocks. The same technique for defining the texture of Ben's rocky hide is repeated across the entire body. While some areas will be distinct, the overall appearance of the craggy hide will remain consistent. Again, the back is prominent and therefore integral to the overall appearance of the build. The spine should be distinct, while the upper back will appear bulky and very craggy. The largest protruding rocks will rise from his upper back and gradually expand to smaller rocks, intermittent with random sizes to fill in gaps. The key to capturing a good random appearance is carefully planning out exactly where the rocks should go to look random, yet appear to be a natural extension of Ben's skin. Texturing the spine first is important to preserve the integrity of this central structure amid the expanse of the rocky area surrounding it. If this part looks tedious, just remember that it is presented here at 2 times speed. I am not texturing the area of his body covered by his signature trunks, keeping in mind that the thickness of the clay used to build up the material of the trunks will provide sufficient thickness while preventing the final appearance from looking like a diaper. The trunks will need to be form-fitting, of course, but still appear to not be attached to the craggy skin. This is accomplished by guiding a slender gap at the waist and legs, while keeping the material flowing over the rocky texture. Motion and fitting creases are placed, shaped together, and should fill out the space adequately to give the illusion of a more flexible material than his skin. The waistband for the trunks is formed with a more stable, flexible clay. This helps to gradually transfer the rocky texture of his skin to the smoother apparent texture of the trunks, while maintaining the illusion that the trunks are making contact but not attached to the skin. Rubbing alcohol helps to smooth out the texture of the trunks, hiding rough areas that were difficult to reach and smooth with tools. The texturing for the legs begins with the knees, where centralized large rocks will provide the definition for the rest of the leg area. The influence of John Byrne's work has played a significant role in how my build of thing has progressed. I did not just randomly select a model for the sculpture, but have been an ardent Byrne fan since my early teens. As I collected his works moving forward, I also painstakingly built my collection retroactively to complete my experience. I had read a few comics as a kid, but the first comic book I purchased for myself from the spinning rack at the grocery store was Fantastic Four 272 in 1984. Even before I could tell most comic art apart, John Byrne's narrative artwork and evocative storytelling brought titles like The FF and Alpha Flight to the top of my reading list. I have followed Mr. Byrne through the DC Comics runs of the Superman titles, the reboot of Kirby's New Gods, and back to the early days of X-Men, Doomsday +1, and Raj 2000. Every version of the thing is therefore directly compared to the Byrne version in my head, and every time I have drawn the thing, my mental reference is courtesy of John Byrne. As time-consuming as this sculpture has proven to be, it has truly been a labor of love. The Fantastic Four has always been more than just a team of heroes, but a family thrice cursed with power. The cosmic powers which have saved their world face the challenges of the universe, the microverse, and the negative zone, have borne with them the cost of wielding such power. Ben Grimm is as much a prisoner of his own heart as he is trapped in the cold, harsh body of a monster. His fears, his regrets, his sense of guilt and responsibility are the hidden keys to his transformation. Despite every effort of Reed Richards to reverse the physical transformations of the thing, he has always failed. When Reed at last understood that the failure was not his own, that Ben could control his transformation if he only chose to, his sadness for his best friend broke his heart. The one love in Ben's life was the beautiful, blind sculptress, Alicia Masters, whom Ben mistakenly had come to fear only loved him because he was a monster. Alicia proved to be the catalyst for Ben's self-imposed imprisonment within the body of the thing. This mental block was only reinforced when the evil Annihilus broke free from the negative zone, while the Fantastic Four explored this realm. Although their journey took them several months spanning the rich and vibrant worlds of the mysterious zone, only a few short hours passed on Earth. In that brief time, Alicia Masters and Richard's young son Franklin fell victim to Annihilus, both nearly dying. This event led to many changes in the lives of the Fantastic Four and created a wedge between Ben and Alicia that would only see them drift further apart. Following the events of the Secret Wars, Ben Grimm had gained the ability to transform at will to and from the Thing and his human form. This led him to choose to stay on the Beyonders' patchwork world, but left Alicia waiting without any confirmation of intent to return to Earth. During this time, the naturally forming relationship between Alicia and Johnny Storm would create the catalyst that eventually culminated with Ben coming to terms with the fact that their love, while true, was one that would never be. When Ben did return to Earth to find that Alicia had moved on, Ben cut ties with the team to find his own path in life. Since then, the story progressed, became new, was rebooted at least twice, and 20 years later, I have no idea what the Fantastic Four or Benjamin Grimm have really been up to in the comics. As we approach the release of the new movie, First Steps, I grow excited, and I finally find a realized version of my mental picture in the thing that I cannot wait to see. At last, most of the build is complete, leaving only the feet to be addressed. The feet will be wide and relatively flat. The foot will be a round and shaped pad extending from the front of the leg on the right and placed partially under the recessed back leg. The feet should be proportionate to the build, which, like the hands, are rather large. The key will be to keep the size of the feet from being too large or too small. The feet will not require any reinforcement as they will be directly added to the build and supported by the base. This allows some freedom in framing the toes and saving a little time. Another function of the knees comes into play as we position the feet. In a dynamic pose, remember that the feet will naturally point in the direction the leg is bent. This will keep the sense of balance in the pose and reinforce the sense of movement. Before detailing the feet completely, I decide to secure the figure to the base with liquid baking clay. The clay will adhere naturally to the bottom of the feet, as well as the wood texture of the base. It can be broken free, but if this happens, it will most likely come free from the wood without damaging the finished clay. Now that the detail work is complete, we are ready for the final bake. Even Benji is glad we're almost done. Painting is a basic process for this piece, but one with great attention to detail. The base coat is a wash to fill in all the cracks, and while it does not matter the color here, I experiment with mixtures of brown, yellow, and vermilion to see how they might look in the finished product. I finally got a good color that blends earthen brown to desert red rock orange. This color will be the base, giving the cracks and crags the shadow and depth the lumpy rocks will need to stand out. I paint the chest first because it is the effective underside of the build and will be the hardest to reach. The lighter color for the surface of the rock should be subtly lighter, not too much of a contrast from the base color. I mix a slightly more yellow version of the base color and diffuse it with white. This coat will be brushed over the surface of the rocks, with the plan being to accentuate the rocky hide while keeping the depth of the crags apparent. This contrast does a good job in creating the illusion that Ben is covered in orange rocks, without painting him comic book orange. The trunks will be painted a deep phthalo blue, with a cerulean blue highlight blended in to accentuate the creases in the material. A basic color scheme to be sure, but it is effective minimalism,